March 31st, 4:45 a.m. The farmhouse's dim interior felt heavier now, the air thick with unspoken tension. Carter leaned against the broken remains of a cabinet, his sharp eyes flicking between us as if calculating odds. Lane and Harris stood close by, their weapons lowered but still in easy reach. "You said you know how to get into Black Hollow," Price said, her tone sharp. "Explain." Carter smirked. "It's not just about getting in. It's about surviving once you're inside. Black Hollow isn't just a facility, it's a fortress. Layers of security, patrols, automated defenses, you name it, they've got it." "You sound like you've been there," Maria said, her rifle resting casually across her lap. "Care to share how you managed that?" "Worked for them once," Carter admitted, his smirk fading, "back before the world fell apart. Let's just say I've seen what they're hiding and decided I wanted no part of it." "And we're just supposed to take your word for it?" Tucker asked, his tone laced with suspicion. Carter's gaze hardened. "I don't care if you trust me. What I know can help you, and you can help me. That's the deal." Price crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "What do you want from us?" "The same thing you want," Carter said. "To take them down. But I'll be honest, I'm not doing this for free. I've got people counting on me, and they need supplies. Food, meds, ammo. You've got resources. I've got intel. We trade, and we fight together." Price considered him for a long moment before nodding. "Fine. But the moment I think you're lying, you're out? Clear?" Carter's smirk returned. "Crystal." With the uneasy alliance formed, the group began preparing for the next leg of the journey. Green huddled over her laptop, cross-referencing Carter's information with the files she'd decrypted. Maria and Tucker worked to redistribute the supplies they'd salvaged, while Lane and Harris kept watch outside. I found myself near Carter, who was meticulously cleaning a compact assault rifle. "So, what's Black Hollow really like?" I asked. Carter glanced at me, his expression unreadable. "Imagine a prison built by people who thought regular prisons were too forgiving. Everything's automated. Heat sensors, motion detectors, kill zones. And that's just the outside. And the inside?" His jaw tightened. "Experiments. People being turned into things. If Orpheus has a heart, that's where it beats." "Sounds like a nightmare," I muttered. "It is," Carter said quietly. "But nightmares can bleed. And if you hit them hard enough, they don't wake up." The first light of dawn began to creep through the cracks in the farmhouse walls. Price gathered us around a makeshift table, a crude map of the region spread out before her. Carter pointed to a heavily wooded area southeast of our position. "Black Hollow's here," he said. "The main entrance is heavily fortified, but there's a maintenance tunnel about half a mile from the perimeter. It's not on any official blueprints, but I know it's there. That's our way in." "And what about the defenses inside?" Green asked, her fingers poised over her keyboard. "We'll need to disable them as we go," Carter replied. "The control center is near the heart of the facility. If we can take that out, we can cripple their operations." Price studied the map, her expression grim. "This isn't just a raid. It's a suicide mission. Not if we play it smart," Carter said. "You've got the skills. I've got the knowledge. Together, we've got a chance." "A chance," Tucker muttered. "That's a lot of weight to put on one word." Price looked up, her gaze sweeping over the group. "We've come this far. If we stop now, everything we've fought for means nothing. We hit Black Hollow, and we hit it hard." "Agreed?" One by one, we nodded. The weight of what lay ahead pressed down on us, but so did the resolve to see it through. We moved out as the sun broke over the horizon, its warmth a stark contrast to the chill in the air. The forest was alive with the sounds of birds and rustling leaves, but every step felt like walking into a trap. Carter led the way, his movements deliberate and precise. "Keep an eye on the tree line," he said quietly. "Orpheus isn't stupid. They'll be watching." As if on cue, Green's laptop chirped. "We've got drone activity," she said, her voice tense. "3 of them, heading this way." Price motioned for us to take cover. "Everyone down. Stay quiet." The faint hum of drones grew louder, the sound sending a shiver down my spine. I pressed myself against the base of a tree, my grip on the Halligan tool tightening. The drones passed overhead, their searchlights cutting through the forest. For a moment, I held my breath, willing the machines to move on. Finally, the hum faded, and Price gave the all-clear. "They're sweeping for us," she said. "We need to keep moving." The journey to Black Hollow stretched on, the tension growing with every step. The facility loomed ahead, hidden by layers of forest and fortified walls. As we reached the edge of the perimeter, Carter stopped and turned to face us. "This is it," he said. "No turning back now. Are you ready?" Price's answer was immediate. "Let's finish this." The shadows of the trees seemed to deepen as we approached, the weight of what lay ahead pressing down on us. Black Hollow waited, a fortress of horrors and secrets, and we were walking straight into its heart. 9:15 a.m. The entrance to the maintenance tunnel was exactly where Carter said it would be, hidden beneath a layer of moss-covered rocks at the base of a ridge. It was small, barely wide enough for one person to crawl through, but it offered the only way into Black Hollow without being detected. Price crouched beside the entrance, her rifle resting against her leg as she studied the surrounding forest. "Maria, Tucker, secure the area. Carter, you and Green are up first. Make sure this tunnel isn't rigged." Carter gave a curt nod and slipped inside, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. Green hesitated, her laptop slung across her back, before following him. The rest of us waited in tense silence, the forest around us alive with the rustle of leaves and the distant calls of birds. "What if he's lying?" Tucker whispered, his shotgun held loosely at his side. "This could be a trap." "If it is, we deal with it," Price said, her tone flat. "But for now, he's our best shot at getting inside." Carter's voice crackled over the comms. "Tunnel's clear. No traps, but it's tight. Move carefully." Price motioned for us to follow. "You next," she said to me. "Green will need backup in case things go sideways." I nodded, gripping the Halligan tool as I lowered myself into the tunnel. The air inside was damp and stale, the walls slick with moisture. The sound of my breathing echoed in the confined space, blending with the faint scrape of boots on rock as I crawled forward. Ahead, Carter and Green were already at work. Carter was examining the tunnel walls, his flashlight revealing faint markings etched into the stone. Green was hunched over her laptop, its screen casting a faint glow. "What VE we got?" I asked, my voice low. "Old maintenance schematics," Green replied, not looking up. "This tunnel connects to a secondary access point inside the facility. If we can reach it, we'll bypass most of the external defenses. And if someone's waiting on the other side?" Carter smirked. "Then we improvise." The tunnel opened into a small chamber, its walls lined with rusted pipes and decaying equipment. A single steel door stood at the far end, its surface marred with scratches and scorch marks. Green approached it cautiously, her laptop in hand. "This is it," she said. "Give me a minute to disable the lock." "Make it quick," Price said, stepping into the chamber with Maria and Tucker close behind. "We're exposed here." The sound of Green's keystrokes filled the room, punctuated by the occasional beep from her laptop. The rest of us took up positions around the chamber, our weapons trained on the tunnel entrance. "Almost there," Green murmured, her brow furrowed in concentration. A faint hum began to build, emanating from the door. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end as the hum grew louder, accompanied by a series of sharp clicks. "What the hell is that?" Maria asked, her grip tightening on her rifle. "Self-repair mechanism," Green said, her voice tense. "It's resetting the lock. I need more time." "You don't have it," Price snapped. "Carter, get that door open." Carter stepped forward, producing a compact device from his pack. He attached it to the door's control panel and pressed a button. The device hissed, releasing a burst of white vapor that froze the panel in an instant. With a sharp twist of his knife, Carter shattered the frozen mechanism. The door slid open with a groan, revealing a narrow corridor bathed in harsh fluorescent light. Green let out a relieved sigh, quickly packing up her laptop. "Move," Price ordered. "Stay sharp." The corridor was sterile and cold, the walls gleaming with a metallic sheen. Cameras were mounted at regular intervals, their lenses sweeping back and forth. Green tapped at her laptop, a faint smile crossing her lips. They haven't detected us yet, she said. I've disabled this section of the security grid, but it won't last long. Price nodded. We'll split into 2 teams. Maria, Tucker, and I will secure the central hub. Carter, you take Green and, she glanced at me, him to the server room. Get whatever intel you can and rendezvous at the extraction point. Understood, Carter said. Stay close, and don't touch anything you don't understand. The server room was a labyrinth of towering racks, each one humming with energy. The air was oppressively warm, and the faint glow of monitors bathed the room in an eerie blue light. Green immediately got to work, her fingers flying across the keyboard. This is insane, she muttered, her eyes scanning the data streaming across the screen. There's enough here to shut Orpheus down for good. Project Apex, their financial backers, deployment schedules, it's all here. Copy it, Carter said. We're not leaving without it. As Green worked, the faint sound of footsteps echoed from the corridor outside. Carter motioned for silence, his weapon raised. I gripped the Halligan tool tightly, my pulse pounding in my ears. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied by muffled voices. Carter signaled for me to take position near the door, his eyes locked on the hallway. As the voices drew closer, I prepared for the worst, every muscle in my body coiled like a spring. The door burst open, and chaos erupted. Shots rang out as Carter fired, his aim precise. I swung the Halligan tool, connecting with the first soldier to enter. The impact sent him sprawling, his rifle clattering to the floor. Green, hurry up, Carter shouted, reloading. Almost there, she yelled back, her voice trembling. Another soldier charged through the door, but I was ready. The Halligan tool struck his chest, knocking the wind out of him. Carter finished him with a quick shot, his expression grim. Got it, Green cried. Let's go. We bolted from the server room, the sound of alarms blaring behind us. The corridors flashed with red warning lights as automated defenses activated. Carter led the way, his movements quick and deliberate. Stay close, he barked. We're not out of this yet. As we sprinted through the labyrinthine halls, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running straight into another trap. Black Hollow wasn't just a fortress. It was a nightmare, and we were still in its grip. 11:30 a.m. The flashing red lights pulsed like a heartbeat, casting the narrow corridors of Black Hollow in an otherworldly glow. Alarms blared, their piercing cries echoing off the steel walls as we ran. Carter led the way, his rifle raised and his movements quick but deliberate. Green was just behind him, clutching her laptop and the precious files she had extracted. I brought up the rear, the Halligan tool gripped tightly in my hands, ready for whatever came next. Keep moving, Carter barked. These alarms mean reinforcements. We've got minutes, maybe less, before they converge on us. No kidding, Maria's voice crackled over the comms. We've got a group of guards closing in on the central hub. What's your status? Extraction is underway, Price replied from another channel. Hold them off as long as you can. We'll rendezvous at the northern exit. We rounded a corner and entered a larger chamber, its high ceilings and towering server racks reminiscent of a digital cathedral. Green's laptop pinged as she scanned the room. Wait, she said, stopping abruptly. There's a secondary control terminal here. I can delay their lockdown protocol if I access it. Carter hesitated, his eyes scanning the shadows. You've got 2 minutes. Any longer, and we're sitting ducks? Green nodded and set her laptop on a nearby console, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Lines of code filled the screen as she worked, her expression focused and determined. This is insane, I muttered, glancing toward the entrances. We're too exposed here. Then make yourself useful and cover her, Carter snapped, his rifle trained on the nearest doorway. The tension in the room was palpable, each second stretching into an eternity. I crouched beside Green, gripping the Halligan tool as I scanned the room for any sign of movement. Almost there, Green said, her voice taut. I just need to bypass one more layer of encryption. The first wave hit us like a tidal surge. The doors burst open, and Orpheus soldiers poured into the room, their rifles blazing. Carter's first shot dropped the lead soldier, his body collapsing in a heap as chaos erupted. "Cover her." Price's voice roared over the comms. I swung the Halligan tool, catching an advancing soldier across the chest and sending him sprawling. The air was thick with gunfire and the acrid smell of burnt circuits as stray bullets struck the server racks. "Got it," Green shouted, slamming her laptop shut. "The lockdown's delayed. We've got a small window to move." "Then move," Carter barked, tossing a grenade toward the advancing guards. The explosion shook the room, buying us precious seconds to escape. We raced down another corridor, the walls vibrating with the force of the ongoing alarms. Green struggled to keep up, her breaths coming in ragged gasps as she clutched the laptop like a lifeline. "Which way?" I called out, glancing at Carter. "Left at the next junction," he replied. "The northern exit is just beyond the containment wing." "Containment wing?" Maria's voice crackled through the comms. "What the hell is that?" "The place where they keep their mistakes," Carter said grimly. 12 p.m. The corridor opened into a massive hall, lined with reinforced glass cells. Inside, shadowy figures moved, their distorted silhouettes hinting at horrors that defied explanation. Some banged against the glass, their inhuman cries muffled but chilling. "Keep moving," Price ordered, her voice taut. "Don't stop to look." I couldn't help but glance into one of the cells. The creature inside was humanoid but grotesquely twisted, its limbs elongated and its eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. It stared at me, its gaze filled with something that felt disturbingly close to recognition. "Eyes front," Carter growled, shoving me forward. "They're not our problem." The northern exit loomed ahead, a massive steel door guarded by 2 automated turrets. Green's laptop pinged as she scanned the area. "The turrets are linked to the mainframe," she said. "I can disable them, but it'll take a minute." "You've got 30 seconds, Price said, taking position beside Carter. "Tucker, Maria. Cover the rear." The sound of pursuing soldiers grew louder, their shouts echoing down the corridor. The turrets whirred to life, their sensors sweeping for targets. Now would be a good time, I shouted, gripping the Halligan tool. "Done," Green exclaimed, the turrets powering down with a hiss. "Go." We bolted through the door, the daylight blinding after the darkness of Black Hollow. The sound of alarms faded behind us as the door slammed shut, sealing the horrors inside. We regrouped in the cover of the forest, our breaths ragged and our bodies aching. Price stood watch, her rifle trained on the facility in the distance. "We're not done," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos we'd just endured. "We've got the data, but now we need to use it." Carter smirked, wiping sweat from his brow. "Step 1. Survive Black Hollow. Step 2. Burn Orpheus to the ground." For the first time in what felt like days, I allowed myself a small, grim smile. The battle was far from over, but we'd taken a step closer to the heart of Orpheus' dark empire, and we weren't stopping now. March 31st, 1 p.m. The forest's dense canopy offered a temporary reprieve from the sun's harsh glare, but the group's respite was fleeting. The adrenaline from their escape from Black Hollow had begun to wear off, replaced by exhaustion and the gnawing realization of what lay ahead. Price crouched behind a fallen log, scanning the tree-line with binoculars. Green sat nearby, her laptop balanced precariously on her knees as she reviewed the stolen data. "How much did we get?" Price asked, her voice low but urgent. Green didn't look up. "A lot. Deployment schedules, experimental protocols, financial backers. It's enough to cripple Orpheus if we can get it to the right people." "Big if," Tucker muttered, reloading his shotgun. "They're going to come after us with everything they have." "Let them," Maria said, her rifle resting across her lap. "We've been running long enough. It's time to hit back." Price lowered the binoculars, her expression unreadable. "That's the plan. But first, we need to regroup and figure out our next move. Carter, what's our best option?" Carter was leaning against a tree, arms crossed. "There's a safe house about 15 clicks from here. It's off the grid. We can lay low there, sort through the data, and plan our next steps." Price nodded. "Fine, but we move now. The longer we stay here, the more time we give Orpheus to catch up." The journey to the safe house was grueling. The forest floor was uneven, riddled with roots and loose rocks that threatened to trip them with every step. The group moved in silence, their eyes and ears tuned to the forest's natural rhythms, searching for any sign of pursuit. Green stumbled, catching herself against a tree. "I'm fine," she said quickly, waving off Maria's concerned glance. "Just tired." "We're all tired," Price said, her tone clipped. "But we don't stop until we reach the safe house." "Assuming it's still there," Tucker said under his breath. Carter shot him a look. "It'll be there. Trust me." "Trust you?" Tucker replied, his tone sharp. "That's a big ask considering where you led us last time." "Enough," Price snapped. "Save it for Orpheus. Let's move." The safe house was little more than a weathered cabin nestled in a grove of trees, its wooden exterior camouflaged by years of moss and ivy. Carter approached it cautiously, his weapon drawn. After a tense moment, he motioned for the others to follow. Inside, the cabin was Spartan but functional. A single room with a small table, a wood-burning stove, and a few cots pushed against the walls. It smelled of damp wood and neglect, but it was a haven compared to the chaos they'd left behind. "Home sweet home," Maria said, setting her rifle against the wall. "Could use some decorating." "It'll do," Price said. "Green, get set up. Carter, see what's still usable. Maria and Tucker, secure the perimeter." As the group settled in, Green wasted no time. She connected her laptop to a portable power source and began sorting through the stolen files. Price stood nearby, her arms crossed as she watched the data scroll across the screen. "This is bigger than I thought," Green said after a moment. "Black Hollow isn't just a facility. It's a hub. They're coordinating multiple projects from there. If we can disrupt their network, we could cripple their entire operation." "And how do we do that?" Price asked. Green hesitated. "We'd need access to one of their central servers. There's a secondary facility listed here. Omega Site. It's smaller than Black Hollow, but just as critical." "Another fortress," Tucker said, re-entering the cabin. "Great. Because the last one went so well?" "We don't have a choice," Price said. "If we hit Omega Site, we cut off their ability to recover from what we did at Black Hollow." Maria stepped through the door, her face grim. "Perimeter's secure for now, but we've got tracks leading this way. Fresh ones." "How fresh?" Carter asked. "Fresh enough to make me nervous," Maria replied. "We've got company coming, Price. It's only a matter of time." Price's jaw tightened. "Then we make this quick. Green, pull what you need. We're not staying long." The sound of distant engines shattered the uneasy calm. Price motioned for silence, her hand raised as she listened. The group tensed, weapons drawn as the hum of vehicles grew louder. "They found us," Carter said, his voice low. "We hold them here," Price said, her voice steady. "Tucker, Maria, cover the windows. Carter, you're with me at the door. Green, secure the files and be ready to move." The first shot rang out, a sharp crack that echoed through the forest. Then all hell broke loose. Bullets tore through the cabin walls, splinters flying as the group returned fire. Tucker's shotgun roared, the sound deafening in the confined space. Maria fired in controlled bursts, her aim precise despite the chaos. Carter kicked the door open, tossing a flashbang into the clearing. The explosion disoriented the advancing soldiers, giving Price and him a chance to push forward. I followed, the Halligan tool in hand, ready to strike. "Green now!" Price shouted. Green bolted from the cabin, the laptop clutched tightly against her chest. I covered her, swinging the Halligan tool into the chest of a soldier who got too close. Carter and Price provided suppressing fire, their shots keeping the remaining soldiers pinned. "Fall back," Price ordered. We retreated into the forest, the cabin behind us engulfed in flames as an Orpheus grenade detonated. The roar of the explosion faded as we disappeared into the shadows, the data we carried now more vital than ever. We regrouped at a ridge overlooking the burning remains of the safe house. Green's hands trembled as she checked her laptop, ensuring the files were intact. Price stood nearby, her gaze fixed on the smoke rising into the sky. "We've lost our sanctuary," she said, "but we've gained a target. Omega Site is next." And this time, we're bringing the fight to them. The group exchanged grim nods. The war with Orpheus was far from over, but for the first time, it felt like we had the upper hand. 6 p.m. The forest had grown darker, the fading light of the day swallowed by thick clouds that threatened rain. The group pressed on, their movements swift but cautious. Price led the way, her rifle held at the ready. Green stayed close behind, her laptop secured in a weatherproof bag. The tension in the air was palpable, each step heavy with the weight of what was to come. "We're 3 clicks from Omega's site," Carter said, consulting a worn map. "If they're on high alert after Black Hollow, we're walking into a fortress." "We've faced worse," Price replied, her tone clipped. "Stay focused." "Green, how's the data?" "It's intact," Green said, glancing at her bag. "But we need to transmit it as soon as we're inside. If we lose this, everything we've done so far is for nothing." Maria let out a low whistle. "No pressure, huh?" "Pressure keeps us alive," Price said. "Carter, take point. Tucker, your rear guard. Let's move." The sight of Omega's site stopped them in their tracks. The facility loomed ahead, a brutalist structure of concrete and steel surrounded by layers of fencing topped with razor wire. Guard towers punctuated the perimeter, their searchlights slicing through the gloom. Beyond the walls, automated turrets and patrolling guards ensured no one entered uninvited. "Looks cozy," Tucker muttered, adjusting the strap of his shotgun. "How are we getting in?" Carter pointed to a drainage tunnel partially obscured by overgrown vegetation. "That leads directly into the lower levels. It's our best bet." "And the guards?" Maria asked. "We avoid them," Price said. "Silent takedowns only. No gunfire unless absolutely necessary." The group crouched near the drainage tunnel, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and stagnant water. Carter went in first, his flashlight illuminating the narrow passage. The tunnel was cold and slick, its walls coated with years of grime. "Watch your step," Carter warned. "It gets narrower up ahead." They moved in single file, the sound of their breathing and the occasional splash of water the only noises. Green's laptop chimed faintly as she checked their position. "We're close," she whispered. "The access point is about 20 meters ahead." The access point was a rusted hatch set into the tunnel wall. Green connected her laptop to the control panel, her fingers flying over the keys. "This is old tech," she said. "Give me a minute to override it." "Make it quick," Price said, her eyes scanning the tunnel behind them. "We're exposed here." The hatch opened with a groan, revealing a dimly lit maintenance corridor. The group slipped inside, weapons raised. The air was colder here, carrying the faint hum of machinery and the sterile scent of recycled air. "Where to now?" Tucker asked. Green checked the map on her laptop. "The mainframe is 2 levels up. If we can reach it, we can upload the data and disable their systems." "Then let's move," Price said. The first encounter came in the form of a patrolling guard. Price signaled for silence, her hand raised in a fist. Maria moved first, her knife flashing in the dim light as she dispatched the guard with practiced efficiency. They dragged the body into a storage closet, ensuring no alarm would be raised. "Stay sharp," Price whispered. "There'll be more." The group moved deeper into the facility, their footsteps muffled by the rubberized flooring. Cameras tracked their movements, but Green worked quickly to loop the feeds, her laptop chiming softly as she disabled each one. "We're clear for now," she said. "But they'll notice the system's been tampered with soon." The mainframe room was a fortress within a fortress. The door was reinforced steel, guarded by 2 heavily armed soldiers. Carter motioned for the group to hold as he studied their movements. "We can't take them out quietly," he said. "Not with that door in the way." "Then we create a diversion," Price said. "Maria, Tucker, you're on distraction duty. Draw them away, but keep it subtle. No explosions." Maria grinned. "Subtle's my middle name." As Maria and Tucker moved into position, Carter prepared a breaching charge for the door. The seconds stretched into an eternity as they waited, every sound amplified in the oppressive silence. The faint sound of a scuffle echoed down the corridor. The guards turned, their attention drawn away from the door. Carter placed the charge and motioned for the group to step back. The charge detonated, the door collapsing inward with a deafening crash. The group surged into the room, weapons raised. Green made a beeline for the main terminal, her laptop already connected to the system. "I need 3 minutes," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. Price and Carter took up defensive positions near the entrance, their rifles trained on the corridor. The sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, accompanied by shouted commands. "They're coming," Carter said. "We've got to hold them off." "Then we hold," Price replied. The first wave of guards hit hard, their bullets sparking against the reinforced walls of the mainframe room. Price and Carter returned fire, their shots precise and lethal. Maria and Tucker rejoined the group, adding their firepower to the defense. "How much longer?" Price shouted. "Almost there," Green yelled, her fingers flying over the keys. The upload completed with a triumphant beep. Green disconnected her laptop, a fierce grin on her face. "It's done. Their systems are compromised. Fall back," Price ordered. The group retreated, fighting their way through the facility as alarms blared. Explosions rocked the building as Carter triggered preset charges, sowing chaos in their wake. By the time they reached the drainage tunnel, the facility was in disarray, its defenses crippled. 9:30 p.m. The group emerged into the night, their breaths ragged but victorious. Behind them, Omega Site burned, its lights flickering as the compromised systems failed one by one. Price turned to the group, her expression hard but triumphant. "This is just the beginning. Orpheus won't recover from this." For the first time, the group allowed themselves a glimmer of hope. The fight was far from over, but tonight, they had struck a decisive blow.